Welcome back. Let's read some more before I get tired. I'm already tired, but not before I'm getting very tired. It's 2 p.m. soon. I'd like to read about this old jet airliner. Cause maybe later in the future I can fly with this one in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Then I know a little bit about the aircraft, or I know where I can find more information. So I did read about this de Havilland Comet yesterday. I did read this yesterday. That was the world's first airliners, passengers, airliners. I need 30 minutes, no, 30 seconds to get to my bed.
Sud Aviation Caravelle. The Sud Aviation SE-210 Caravelle is a French jet airliner produced by Sud Aviation. It was developed by SMCACE in the early 1950s, and made its maiden flight on the 27th of May, 1955. It included some de Havilland designs and components developed for the de Havilland Comet. SMCACE merged into the larger Sud Aviation conglomerate before the aircraft entered revenue service on the 26th of April, 1959, with Scandinavian Airlines System, SAS. 282 were built until production ended in 1972. It was ordered by airlines on every continent and operated until its retirement in 2005. The short-range, 5-abreast airliner is powered by two aft-mounted Rolls-Royce Avon turbojet engines, allowing a clean low wing. The configuration was later retained in many narrow-body aircraft and regional jets. The initial I-3 and 6 variants could seat 90 to 99 passengers over 1,650 to 2,500 kilometers. 890 to 1,315 mi. The later, slightly longer 10 forward/11 variants could seat 99 to 118 passengers over 2,800 to 3,300 kilometers, 1,500 to 1,800 mi, and were powered by Pratt & Whitney JT8D low bypass turbofans. The stretched Caravelle 12 could seat 131 over 3,200 kilometers, 1,700 mi. Development, edit. Origins, edit. On the 12th of October, 1951, the Comité du Matériel Civil Aircraft Committee, published a specification for a medium-range aircraft, which was later sent to the aviation industry by the Direction Technique et Industrielle. This called for an aircraft capable of carrying 55 to 65 passengers and 1,000 kilograms, 2,200 pounds, of cargo on routes up to 2,000 kilometers, 1,100 mi, 1,200 mi, with a cruising speed of about 600 kilometers per hour. 320 kn, 370 miles per hour. The type and number of engines were not specified. Since 1946, various design studies for aircraft in this category had already been underway at several of the leading French aircraft manufacturing organizations, and had resulted in some ambitious concepts being mooted. None of these firms possessed the financial power to independently embark on the substantial development work involved, let alone to establish a manufacturing line for the construction of such aircraft. The response to the specification from the French industry was strong. It has been claimed that every major manufacturer submitted at least one proposal. A total of 20 different designs were ultimately received. The majority of these proposals were powered by all turbojet engine arrangements, although Breguet had entered a number of designs that were powered by both turbojet and turboprop engines. Among these was one for a Snecma Atar-powered trijet to be developed in association with the SNCA du Nord and a turboprop type. All of the different designs were designated as Brother 978. Ural Dubois had entered several turboprop designs based on a narrow fuselage and shoulder-mounted wing, similar to many regional propliners. Proposals from SNCSO included the S.O.60 with two Rolls-Royce Avon RA.7 engines, outfitted with two smaller Turbonca Marbares as auxiliaries. SNCS had also returned a number of designs from the X200 to X210, all of these being purely jet-powered. On the 28th of March, 1952, after studying the various entries, the Comité du Matériel Civil announced that it had produced a short list of 3 entrants: the 4-engined Avon /Marber SNCSO S.0.60, the twin Avon Ural Dubois project, and the 3-engined Avon SNCS X210. At this point, British engine manufacturer Rolls-Royce had already begun to offer a new version of the Avon that was to be capable of developing 9,000 lbf, 40 kN, of thrust, which would render the auxiliary engines of the S.0.60 and the third engine featured on the X210 unnecessary. The committee issued a request for SNCS to resubmit its X210 proposal as a twin Avon design. In doing so, SNCS decided to not remove the remaining engines from their rear-mounted position. Most designs had placed the engines underneath the wing, where they could be mounted on the spar for lower overall weight, but it was felt that these weight savings were not worth the effort. This turned out to be a benefit to the design, as the cabin noise was greatly reduced as a result. In July 1952, the revised X210 design with twin Avons was resubmitted to the Secretariat General for Civil and Commercial Aviation, SGIC. Selection, edit. 2 months later, SNCS received official notification that its design had been accepted. On the 6th of July 1953, the SGIC placed a formal order for the construction of a pair of prototypes along with a pair of static airframes for fatigue testing. SNCS's design licensed several fuselage features from British aircraft company de Havilland, the two companies already having had dealings in respect to several earlier designs. The nose area and cockpit layout were taken directly from the de Havilland Comet jet airliner, while the rest of the airliner was locally designed. A distinctive design feature was the cabin windows in the shape of a curved triangle, which were smaller than conventional windows but gave the same field of view downwards. On the 21st of April, 1955, the first prototype of the Caravelle, FWHHH, launched by Madame de Gaulle, was rolled out. On the 27th of May, 1955, the first prototype conducted its maiden flight, powered by a pair of British Rolls-Royce RA-26 Avon Mk.522, capable of providing 4,536 kgf, 44,480 N, 10,000 lbf, of unitary thrust. For the maiden flight, which had a total duration of 41 minutes, the crew consisted of Pierre Nadeau, Captain, André Moynat, First Officer, Jean Avril, Mechanic, André Prenerin, Radio Operator, and Roger Betail. Almost 1 year later, on the 6th of May, 1956, the second prototype made its first flight. The first prototype had been fitted with a cargo door located on the lower left side of the fuselage, but this door was removed in the second prototype in favor of an all-seating arrangement. By October 1956, both prototypes had accumulated in excess of 1,000 flight hours. By the end of 1956, the two aircraft had visited various locations across Europe and North Africa, and trials were already underway for French carrier Air France. During 1957, the second prototype accumulated roughly 2,500 flight hours across various flights conducted throughout North America and South America. In 1956, the type received its first order from Air France. It was followed by Scandinavian Airlines System, SAS, in 1957. More orders followed, which had been partially driven by a campaign of direct presentations held at air shows and dedicated flight demonstrations using the two prototypes to potential customers. Also during 1956, SNCAS, Sudist-Southeast, had merged with SNCASO, Sud-Ouest-Southwest, and several other French aircraft manufacturers to become Sud Aviation. However, the original SE designation assigned to the airliner was retained. In May 1959, the Caravelle received its airworthiness certification, enabling the type to enter passenger service. On the 26th of April 1959, the Caravelle performed its first flight with paying passengers on board for Scandinavian operator SAS. Shortly thereafter, the type commenced operations with Air France as well. Further development, edit. Within 4 years of entering airliner service, a total of 172 Caravelles had been sold to a range of operators. Aviation writer M.G. Douglas attributed the type's favorable early sales record to the effective marketing campaign of performing demonstrations to prospective customers using the two prototypes, as well to the Caravelle having effectively no jet-powered rivals, being the only short-haul jetliner for several years following its introduction. Several models of the Caravelle were developed and produced over the lifetime of the production run, often in response to the increasing power of the available engines, which allowed higher takeoff weights to be adopted. By 1963, there were a total of 6 different versions of the Caravelle in production, designated 3, 6N, 6R, 10AM, 10B, and Xvia. Of these, the Caravelle 3 was considered to be the basic version of the airliner, while the other variants featured an increasing number of improvements. The Caravelle 6 then was equipped with more powerful Avon 531 engines and an additional heat exchanger for the air conditioning, while the Caravelle 6R, which had come about as a result of demands by U.S. carrier United Airlines, was furnished with thrust reverser-equipped Avon 352S, a revised windscreen design, soundproofing, a new luggage compartment door, and wing spoilers. The Caravelle 10AM and 10B, which differed only in the engines used and were commonly referred to as the Super Caravelle, featured the improvements of the 6R in addition to a high degree of further design changes. The more high-profile modifications included a stretch of the fuselage by 33 inches, 84 centimeters, a highly altered wing, an aerodynamic fairing behind the fin of the tailplane, expanded cargo capacity via raised floor support struts, and higher cabin windows. Other changes included the adoption of variable displacement pumps for the hydraulic system and the use of AC-based generators in place of earlier DC counterparts, along with an auxiliary power unit, APU. The redesigned wing was equipped with double-slotted Fowler flaps, additional and repositioned stall vanes, aerodynamic improvements to the wing root and adjustments to the leading edge that improved the performance of the wing during the crucial takeoff and landing phases of flight. Despite its commercial success, however, the Caravelle was soon displaced from being the focus of Sud Aviation's development efforts, as the majority of the company's design engineers were progressively reallocated onto an entirely new project that was intended to produce a successor to the Caravelle. The project was relatively ambitious, having the aim of producing a viable supersonic transport that possessed the same general size and range as the Caravelle. It was decided that the envisioned supersonic airliner should be naturally named after the firm's recent success, thus the Super Caravelle name was applied to the design. Ultimately, the work on the Super Caravelle would be merged with similar work that had been undertaken by Britain's Bristol Aeroplane Company, and would result in the development of Concorde. In total, 282 Caravelles of all types were manufactured, 2 prototypes or pre-production aircraft and 280 production aircraft. Reportedly, Aviation's projected break-even point for the type had been forecast to be around the 200-unit mark. Design, edit. This section needs expansion. You can help by adding to it. March 2017. The Caravelle belongs to the first generation of passenger aircraft to use newly developed jet propulsion technology, and it was the first jet airliner developed specifically for the short forward/medium range sector of the market. Early in the Caravelle's career, its chief competitors were propeller-driven aircraft, such as the British-built Vickers Viscount and the U.S.-built Convair CV440. Reportedly, the Caravelle proved to be a highly reliable airliner during its early years of service. The low accident rate for the type led to lower than average insurance premiums for Caravelle operators. The Caravelle was typically powered by a pair of British-built Rolls-Royce Avon turbojet engines, installed in a rear-mounted position close to the tail unit. Various models of the Avon engine were adopted for different versions of the airliner, often with increased thrust and additional features such as thrust reversers. Alternative power plants were adopted or proposed for some Caravelle models, such as the U.S.-built Pratt & Whitney JT8D1 and General Electric CJ805-23C engines. The Caravelle was designed to maximize passenger comfort and operator convenience. The rear entry door had built-in stairs that, while adding structural complexity, meant that mobile airport stairs were unnecessary. On later variants, soundproofing in the form of readily removable mattress-like rolls that fixed in place via existing brackets was added to the design. In some configurations, the Caravelle's cabin was furnished with a number of rearward-facing passenger seats, which was an uncommon arrangement amongst civil aircraft. From September 1963 onwards, an auto-landing capability, via 2 separate systems, of which one was self-contained while the other was integrated with the airliner's autopilot, was made available for the Caravelle by Aviation. The final assembly line for the Caravelle was at Aviation's factory at Blagnac Airport near Toulouse. Much of the aircraft was manufactured at other sites across France and in other countries, however. The production of large portions of the Caravelle had been subcontracted to other manufacturers. These included the Italian aircraft manufacturer Fiat Aviation, which produced the aircraft's tailplane, fin, ailerons, and engine nacelles, and French aviation firm Breguet Aviation, which performed the outfitting of the rear fuselage, while much of the ancillary equipment of the Caravelle originated from either British or US manufacturers. Aviation constructed and outfitted the nose section, along with manufacturing the tail cone, rudder, Fowler flaps, both the leading edges and trailing edges of the wing, and the majority of the fuselage. Variants, edit. Variants. Variant length engines passengers. Caravelle I32.01M, 105 feet 0 in, RA 29 Mk.52280. Caravelle A32.01M, 105 feet 0 in, RA 29 Mk.52280. Caravelle 332.01M, 105 feet 0 in, RA 29 Mk.527 and 527B80. Caravelle 6N 32.01M, 105 feet 0 in, Ra 29 Mk.531 and 531 B80. Caravelle 6R 32.01M, 105 feet 0 in, Ra 29 Mk.533 R80. Caravelle 10R 32.01M, 105 feet 0 in, P&W JT8D780. Caravelle 11R 32.71M, 107 feet 4 in, P&W JT8D78999. Caravelle 10B 33.01M, 108 feet 4 in, P&W JT8D7105. Caravelle 12 36.24M, 118 feet 11 in, P&W JT8D9 140. Caravelle I. Similar to the original prototypes, first flew on the 14th of May 1958. This variant was powered by two Rolls-Royce Ra-29 Avon Mk.522 with 4,763 kgf, 46,710 N, 10,500 lbf, of unitary thrust and a capacity of 80 passengers. French certification was obtained on the 2nd of April, 1959, and US certification was obtained 6 days later. The first revenue flight took place that year with Air France on the Paris-Rome-Athens-Istanbul route. Air France Caravelle registration FBHRB Lorraine was introduced in the Paris-London route on the 27th of July, 1959. Sales, 20 were sold, to Air France, 10, SAS, 6, Air Algérie, 2, and Varig, 2. One of the Varig aircraft was leased by Sud to Air Vietnam and Middle East Airlines before delivery to Royal Air Maroc. In Australia, Trans-Australia Airlines had planned to re-equip with the Caravelle, but as ANZ felt this was too advanced at that stage for its own needs, under Australia's two airlines policy both airlines were required to purchase the ANZ preference, the less advanced turboprop Lockheed L188 Electra. Caravelle IA. This variant had the same external configuration as variant I but with more powerful engines, the Rolls-Royce Avon Ra-29/1 Mk.526 giving improved capabilities. The first flight took place on the 11th of February, 1960. Caravelle I and IA aircraft were later converted to the 3 variant. Sales, 12 built. Deliveries were to Air France, SAS, Air Algérie, Finnair, and Royal Air Maroc. Caravelle 3. Later improvements to the Avon led to the Caravelle 3. It first flew on the 30th of December, 1959, entering service with Alitalia in April, 1960. The Caravelle 3 was powered by Rolls-Royce Avon Ra-29/3 Mk.527 and Ra-29/3 Mk.527B engines, both with 5,170 kgf, 50,700 N, 11,400 lbf, of unitary thrust. Sales, the Series 3 was the best-selling Caravelle with 78 built. All but one of the 32 series built were upgraded to Series 3 standard. Air Inter used 16 of this type for its domestic routes. Major deliveries were to Air France, as well as aircraft for Swissair, Alitalia, SAS, and Royal Air Maroc. Caravelle 6N. N standing for normal. A version with more powerful Avon Ra-29/6 Mk531 and Ra-29/6 Mk531B engines producing 5,535 kgf, 54,280 N, 12,200 lbf, of unitary thrust. The capabilities were improved and the weights increased. the actual payload was reduced. The Caravelle 6N first flew on the 10th of September 1960, beginning service with Belgian airline Saabner in January 1961. 5 of the 78 Series 3s were upgraded to Series 6N. Sales, 53 built. Deliveries to SETA, Corsair, Europe AS, Minerve, Indian Airlines and Yugoslav Airlines. Caravelle 6R. First Caravelle with thrust reversers. The cockpit windows were made larger with redesigned layout and more powerful brakes were introduced. It first flew on the 6th of February 1961, obtaining US certification on the 5th of June that same year. It began service with United Airlines on the 14th of July. The 6R was powered by Avon RA-29 Mk533R and Mk535R, for reverse engines with a unitary thrust of 5,715 kgf, 56,050 N, 12,600 lbf. Sales, 56 built, 24 United Airlines. Other Series 6 customers included Indian Airlines, 9, Painair do Brasil, 4, Cruzeiro do Sul, Iberia Linhas Aéreas de Espanha, 4, LAN Chile, 3, Aerolíneas Argentinas, 3, and TAP Portugal, 3. This model was also used by Filipinas Orient Airways, 1, Air Acesa, Airborne Express and Sun Nationales. Caravelle 7. This was a Series 3, C/N042, that was purchased by General Electric, ferried to the United States as Santa Marian 9 and equipped with General Electric CJ805 aft fan engines, becoming, in effect, the engine test bed for the Caravelle 10AM. Flight tests with the new engines began on the 29th of December 1960 and a second aircraft was planned to be converted, but this aircraft became the sole Caravelle 10AM. Caravelle 10AM. Based on the Series 7, but intended for the US market, the 10AM was 1 meter, 3 feet 3 in, longer than the Series 6, with the windows located 200 millimeters, 7.9 in, higher on the fuselage. The sole prototype was powered by 271.62 kN, 16,100 lbf, General Electric CJ805-23C aft fan engines and flew for the first time on the 31st of August, 1962. A modified wing with improved flaps was fitted to meet US certification requirements, as was an auxiliary power unit, APU, in the rear fuselage. Trans World Airlines, TWA, cancelled its order for 20 aircraft due to financial problems, however, and by the time TWA was in a position to purchase new aircraft, the Douglas DC-9 was preferred. After testing, the prototype was scrapped. Caravelle 10B, Super Caravelle. Based on the Series 10AM, this variant offered many modifications in respect to other series. It introduced a leading-edge extension, a fillet added to the front of an aircraft wings in order to provide usable airflow at high angles of attack. The wing had split flaps instead of the earlier model's double-slotted Fowler flaps, and the fuselage was the extended 1.40 m, 4 feet 7 in, with an increase in passenger capacity to 105. The engines used were the new Pratt & Whitney JT8D turbofan engines with 6,350 kgf, 62,300 N, 14,000 lbf, of unitary thrust. The 10B first flew on the 31st of August, 1964 and was produced as a run of 22 aircraft. Launch customer and primary operator of the 10B was Finnair with 8 examples. Aviaco ordered 5, but this was cancelled, with those aircraft going to Sterling Airways, LTU, and Iberia Airlines. Alir and Union des Transports Aériens, UTA, also acquired aircraft. The last operational Caravelle was a Type 310B that flew with Walter until 2005. Caravelle 10R. A combination of the 10BS engines on the Series 6R fuselage, creating a smaller but higher-powered aircraft. Maximum weight at takeoff was increased to 52,000 kilograms, 115,000 pound, 6,000 kilograms or 13,000 pound more than the Series I and 2,000 kilograms or 4,000